Hi, I'm Andrew Laird, Senior Soccer Editor of RotoWire, and I'm here to talk about Sorare for a second time. I did a video last week doing kind of an introduction to the site, how you get in, how you play, and I've gotten so many questions, really good ones, about people who are interested in joining the site that I thought another video would be helpful because really the question I keep getting is, how do I get in? What do I need to do? How much money do I need to get started? And that last one is really a bit of a kicker because I've had some people ask, what's the cheapest way? It seems like it's pretty expensive. And others are asking me how much they have to spend to enter every contest that's on Sorare. So it's kind of a loaded question. And I thought doing another video, just kind of explaining all of the opportunities that you have to compete on Sorare and then basically how much money you have to spend to do that. So one of the things that you want to do before you really jump in is figure out not only just kind of what your budget is monetarily, but also your time budget. Sorare covers a vast number of leagues. And if you don't want to be an expert in everything, that's okay. But you need to figure that out before you start buying cards because speaking from my own experience, you can kind of get into the groove of buying cards. And then once you go to play them in these tournaments, you kind of realize maybe you didn't buy exactly the cards that you should have been focusing on to get the best results in these tournaments. So one of my favorite graphics that Sorare gives us is this one that kind of explains the different divisions that they have within all of their tournaments. And so just basically looking at the four that they offer, the D4, D3, D2, and D1, and which cards you need in order to enter those. So D4 is their kind of lower entry tournaments. So their biggest tournament is their global D4, which means you can take cards from anywhere in the world, and as long as you have 5, you can put them in there. You can also compete with a common card, which is really big for those who kind of want to get in on a budget. If you can use your common goalkeeper, because I'll get into why this is the case later, but goalkeeper is one of the more expensive positions if you're trying to do this kind of on a lower budget. And if you can use a common goalkeeper, then you only have to buy 4 cards, all outfield players, and you can use those in the global D4. So in D3, you can play at least 3 rares and 2 super rares. And what that really means is if you're competing to win, you're going to need 2 super rares because basically the easiest path to winning is with 2 super rares because they actually score more points than the rare cards. And that idea kind of flows to the other tournaments, the other levels, So D2, at least 3 super rares. You can fill it with the next 2 with either a unique and or a rare. But obviously the unique cards and super rare cards get more points than the rare. So you shouldn't really see many rare cards in the D2. And then D1 is really a beast of in itself. I'll get into it a little bit, but you need 3 uniques. A lot of people play 5, but there's just a lot that goes on with D1. So I'll get to that in a little bit. So if you're somebody who just wants to play the global tournament, you're looking at buying 4 cards, which as well as you're using one of your commons. You can certainly buy a rare goalkeeper if you have the budget. But if you're trying to keep this kind of on the lower end, then buy 4 rares. Hopefully you got a good common goalkeeper when you signed up. And then you can just go. So the Global All-Stars is the easiest one to get into, at least from a card accumulation standpoint, because you can buy a player from anywhere in the world. The thing you have to watch out for, though, is that these leagues don't always play at the same time. So if you buy a card of a player in Spain and one in Japan and one in America, they're not always playing at the same time. So you got to make sure that you prioritize the leagues that are playing together if you want to enter right away. So then the other leagues that they have are these the European Champion, the European Challenger, which obviously include the European teams. The champions are the big 5 leagues that most of us know quite well. And then the European Challengers are the smaller ones that we see in Belgium, the Netherlands, Portugal. Now, Sorare doesn't have every team in all of these countries, but as long as you have a card from a player on one of those teams, you can play them in that tournament. And then, of course, there's the American Champion and the Asian Champion. So the Asian champion and the American champions actually have more teams than like the European champions, just because there are more teams with licenses. So you really need to like figure out how many cards you want to get and where you want to focus your energy. So I tried to make this fairly easy graphic, that like shows exactly where you need to distribute your cards. So this doesn't include the weekly special, which they do every week. There's some special prize. You do have to enter a full lineup in there. Usually common cards are not accepted, but you can play any level. So if you want to play 5 rare cards, you can do that. If you want to play 5 uniques, I don't know why you would, but that's where you would do it. Excuse me. So again, the Global All-Star is the key tournament for those who are looking to get in early. The reason why is because instead of just a basic payout to the top, however many cards, finishers it is who win a card, if you score 205 points or more than 205, you're given 0.01 ETH. And if you get 250, it's 0.02. So this doesn't even matter how many people finish ahead of you. As long as you finish above those numbers, you get a payout. Ethereum kind of moves, obviously, throughout the day. It comes out to about $17 right now for the 0.01, 34 for the 0.02. So that's like a decent payout for just hitting a score every week. And there are a lot of people who will try to make, try to make a lineup. Let's say they spend $300. And if you can place it above that 250 point threshold 10 times, and there are contests twice a week, usually, the cards pay for themselves. It's as simple as that. Now, I'm not going to say it's very easy to get a full lineup with $300 and that you're going to hit 250 or 205 every week. But that's kind of the way that you can start to grind out your cards. So obviously we have a little more work to do with the others because we have to pick specific teams and players from leagues that you may not be comfortable with or you have no interest in. And then if that's the case, it's okay not to enter those. So I think one of the problems that I've encountered with a few other people asking questions, they say, I have cards from here, here, here. They have more than they can enter in the Global All-Star, but they don't have enough for a full lineup in the other tournament. So let's say, you have 6 Euro Challenger cards and 3 Euro Champion cards. You can mix and match those to get your Global All-Star, but now you don't have enough for the 2 other divisions, and you may not have a goalkeeper at all. So you really need to figure out exactly where your budget is and then how to distribute it. So I attempted to put this together, and the numbers that are showing here are very basic. And excuse me, I don't think these are numbers that you should go by necessarily. Like, this doesn't mean if you look at the Global All-Star chart that I have that you're going to be able to find a defender, a midfielder, and a forward for $80. I'm using dollars here, even though Ethereum is kind of the base currency of Sorare. Newer people that I've spoken with, even if they have ETH to transfer in, sometimes it takes a little while. You can buy right away on a debit or credit card. So I'm going to use dollars just for the sake of this exercise. So I included goalkeeper pricing on all of them because to really compete in these leagues, you need a real goalkeeper. The common goalkeeper strategy is mostly just for those who are trying to hit that ETH threshold of 205 and 250 in the Global All-Star. But as you can see, the costs kind of add up a little bit. And this doesn't even include anything for global or for the D1 level, which is all uniques. I'll touch on that in a second. But the more that you have to buy, obviously, the more cards you need to enter these tournaments, the higher your costs go. So you can go in and say, I'm not going to compete in the Euro Champions at all because there are just not enough teams and not enough players. So you can take that out. You can still buy players from the Euro Champions and play them in the Global All-Star. You have to remember that so the Euro Champion players are probably more well-known than the ones in Euro Challenger, but they're all scored the same. So if you have like a Euro Challenger player, so somebody from the Jupiler League or Eredivisie, that scores better than somebody from La Liga, you're going to be behind those people that have the Euro Challenger players in Global All-Star. It's just something to think about because you're eventually going to have to invest in these specific leagues. So, goalkeeper is the most, I don't want to call it the most important, but it's the hardest to fill because there are so few of them. So when you consider how many teams there are in each division, each team only has one goalkeeper. So, a lot of them start 4 defenders, 4 to 5 midfielders, maybe a few forwards, but each one has one goalkeeper. So just easily breaking down the divisions, like just to kind of give you an idea of like what they look like. The European Champions division has 19 teams in it. So that's only 19 goalkeepers that you can choose from. And this is everybody who is playing is trying to get one of these 19 goalkeepers. And obviously injuries pop up or jobs get lost. But I think it's important to realize like the reason the European champion goalkeepers are so expensive, which therefore makes it much more expensive to compete just in the European champion divisions, no matter what it is that the supply of goalkeepers is just much smaller. And we really get that in the U23. So everybody who is coming in that I've spoken to seems to be really excited. They want to find the next young up-and-coming player, think they can get him cheap. And if the player is already in the first team, they're not cheap. So I'll put that out right away. But also, if you find a player who's really young and maybe hasn't broken in yet, they're not going to score any points for you now. So you're kind of in this weird spot of like, am I playing for now or am I playing for the future? And if you're playing for the future, you can take a few more risks. But obviously, those cards are not going to earn you any money right now, at least as long as you hold them. So if you look at the European Challenger, obviously there are many more teams. Asian Champions is the same way. We have MLS has a ton of teams and new ones are coming on. So we just end up seeing cheaper goalkeepers there because there are just more of them. It's a very basic supply and demand. So what you want to do is figure out how far you want to take your cards. Don't just start buying cards from all over the place. Have a plan and figure out which ones you want to attack. And if you look at all of this and say, yes, I want to go buy a goalkeeper from every division, and I want to buy, really multiple goalkeepers from each one because I want to compete at every level, like that's fine. You do you, but you're going to need a lot of cards to do it. And so back to this one, this is just the number of cards to compete, and we're looking at 148 cards. I mean, that in itself is going to take a while to accumulate. Not to mention that like the seasons don't always overlap, but sometimes they do kind of. We're creeping up. Basically, the beginning of MLS is when almost all, I believe, all of the leagues are playing at the same time. So it's a lot of cards that you need to accumulate, but you also have to do it smartly. And so the best thing to do really is to figure out which leagues you want to focus on, because you don't want to just start buying cards just to enter tournaments. These tournaments are not easy to win. Even placing and earning cards is not easy. There are people who've been doing this for a while and they have very good teams and you have to beat them. So I put this together. These are kind of the payouts that we've seen over the last few weeks. So scoring week to week, that's not something you want to look at because games are different, schedules are different. So sometimes we'll see some really high scores that you need in order to place, and then some weeks it won't be as high. So the one thing that I like to look at least to start off, is basically the win percentage. So this is how many entries will qualify for a free card, for a prize card, I guess we can call them. So the numbers aren't great. And obviously the more people that play, and Sorare has seen like explosive growth over the last few weeks, particularly the last week, that these numbers are only going to go down unless they increase the payouts. And I have no knowledge that they're going to do this. There's kind of this assumption that they're going to, only because there's so many more players. But right now, in last week's global D4, which is where you can qualify for the 205 and 250, less than 6% of entries won a card. If you come from the DFS world, you're used to very top-heavy payouts. This is about as top-heavy as it gets. So if you look, like the U23s, the win percentage is actually pretty high. So if you're thinking they're like, oh, I'll just go after the U23s. I'll warn you, Like goalkeeper is the biggest problem there. There are plenty of U23 players all over the outfield. U23 goalkeepers are very tough to find. That doesn't mean that they're not on the secondary market, but you're going to have to really pay up for that. So if you're somebody who is building this U23 team, and you can still play that in the Global All-Star, but if you have like a number of U23 players and you're like, I think these guys are really good, you're not going to place anywhere close if you have a common goalkeeper. And that's if you even got a U23 common goalkeeper. So you just have to realize that the pricing to get in for U23 is very tough, which is why not as many people enter, but they do have at least additional prizes. So plan out how you're going to attack these, because that's ultimately where you're going to have to spend your money. So I want to focus on the global D4 for a quick second, because all of that of how hard it's difficult to win prizes now. A lot of people are making money on this ETH payout of 0.01 and 0.02 each week. And it's perfectly fine. You know, if you're somebody who wants to start slowly and on a lower budget, this is exactly the tournament that you should be playing. You can buy 4 cards, you can buy 5 cards. Obviously, the 5th one, the goalkeeper, will be the most expensive. But what we saw last week, 5.68% of teams qualified for a card prize, but almost 54% of people hit the 205 barrier, and almost 30% hit 250. So just think, like, this is money that goes right to you that can go to help pay off the cards that you bought. So I'll do some other videos in the future about ways to find cheaper players. I think that one of the biggest things to do is not be an ageist. There are plenty of players who are very capable of putting up consistent fantasy points that happen to be 30 years old. They don't have a lifetime of usage for you. But if you're truly just playing for these ETH payouts each week, which definitely add up, I highly recommend you doing that. Sorare data is the site to go for that. It's the best resource for playing this game. I spend more time on Sorare data than I do on Sorare because there's just so much to do on there. But they have some excellent features. We can really nail down exactly the cards that are on sale in the secondary market or auctions that are coming up, and you can do specific filters. So if you want just Euro Challenger midfielders, you can find them there. So that's I'll go into I'll do another video kind of walking through that just to help out. But really the point of this one was just to make sure that you understand why it's important to plan before you get started and start buying cards, because ultimately the last thing you want is to buy up all these cards and then realize you can't really play them anywhere because you just spent all this money, and now you're forced to hopefully sell them on the secondary if you want to get out of them because you can't actually use them in these tournaments. So if you're ready to jump in, you can feel free to contact me. You can leave a comment below. You can find me on Twitter at RotoWire Andrew. Also available on Discord in the RotoWire Discord as well as in the Sorare Discord. If you're ready to jump in as well, there's a code in the episode description. That's just my referral code. If you use that, you will get a free rare card after you purchase 5 on auctions. I will get one as well for referring you. But yeah, so like I said, any questions, feel free to reach out, and good luck out there.